Hey everyone, I'm live here in person with Ashley Abedini from Abedini Social. Welcome,
Hello.
Ashley.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time.
We
You've
have.
followed since the beginning of the journey, you and your sister. And you were in Austin originally. So I guess my first question, it's not on here, but what brought you back to Wichita?
Yeah, so I am one of the people that have moved in like the midst of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's kind of a pattern of that, people moving from big cities. I really just missed my sense of community here in Wichita.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have so many friends and family members here that I just missed it. I was thinking about it for a while, and I think the pandemic was kind of like the catalyst that ultimately made me decide maybe it's best to move back.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I have been seeing a lot of that as well. Like I've noticed a lot of people doing that from, like you said, the bigger cities.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help people? I know you have a couple of different things going on.
Yeah, so I, first of all, I am a foodie here in Wichita. I have an account that I created when I moved back to kind of rediscover the places that I love, the hole-in-walls, but also the new places that have popped up. There's been a ton of places in the last 5 years. So I have that, but I am a digital social media agency owner of Abedini Social. And so I have gone from like freelancer to social media owner. And what I do is, one of my favorite things is talking to entrepreneurs. And I feel like there's, this overall pattern of just complete chaos. And I think, it seems like every day there's a new challenge. There's so many hats that an entrepreneur just has to wear. So I essentially make that business owner's life easier, and I think I for the most part, take the guesswork out of marketing. I have so many people that come to me and they have a really good grasp on maybe their audience and like their specific niche, but you don't know what you don't know, and they want to know what platforms do I go on, like everything. And I feel like there's just so many things with entrepreneurship, with the chaos, that like the last thing on your mind should be, did I post today? What am I going to post today? Oh my God, did I respond to all the DMs and the Instagram? Mm-hmm. So I just essentially do all the social media, kind of a one-woman show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. And what is your handle for your foodie Instagram?
It's ICT Broke Girls.
Yes.
And I explore like affordable eats in Wichita.
And you have one in Austin too that you used to run or still run?
Yeah, I try to run it and try to be relevant in the Austin community as much as I can. And that's ATX Broke Girls.
You have a big following over there.
Yeah. I kind of found a niche because I feel like, especially in Austin, there's so many like bougie happy hour people that there's a lot of people that are really struggling to, poverty's real. So people want to know how to find a good place
to eat. Yeah, for sure. So I love that you brought that same concept to Wichita and are helping in the community here. I always see interesting stuff I never knew about on your channel. So can you give us a little bit of background into really like where that entrepreneurial spirit came from? Because everything that you're talking about it's entrepreneurial. So
yeah, I actually got a really good opportunity. I went to Wichita State and I got a good scholarship from like the Devlin entrepreneurship. And I went that route for a while and I learned a lot and I really loved it. I was at a point where I found, I also really love psychology and like consumer behavior. Mm-hmm. So I decided to go down the route of marketing when I realized you can actually make money, like using consumer behavior and psychology. So I kind of went down that route, but I feel like a part of me will always respect entrepreneurs. I feel like it's such like a crazy field. And it's such an interesting field. Like I just truly like learning about entrepreneurship and talking with business owners. They're just,
everybody's so different and their approaches are so unique.
Yeah. And the passion behind their business is really interesting to hear.
I love that. So, well, speaking of passion, what's the passion that drives you in your business in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think with time, especially in marketing, you realize, I have to ultimately believe in what I'm like marketing. I have to at least believe in the person that I'm marketing it for. And for me, I mean, I have a lot of passion in mental health, actually. And so I'm planning to create a podcast that kind of introduces people's vulnerability, maybe mental illness, chronic illness,
Oh, I love that.
Because I think we're kind of coming into a new time in entrepreneurial like journey where, first of all, talking about our vulnerabilities is something that's a lot more common, but it's actually used as a strength now. And I think, especially the Hive, you see there's such like a feminine like management style that's a little different. So I've already like mentioned, I think it's when you talk about your vulnerabilities to other people that they feel safe to share theirs. And I think there's such an overlap, especially with bipolar, very specific, but I've met so many business owners that I want to diagnose them very, very quickly if they already don't come forward with maybe their struggles.
That's so interesting you say that, because I have not announced this to the Hive community, but I'm planning to soon. I just got diagnosed with ADHD.
Oh, wow.
And I've been noticing the same thing. I've been noticing a lot of entrepreneurs, I would be able to almost die diagnosed with ADHD. And then my psychologist told me that actually there is a big overlap in entrepreneurship and neurodivergency. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's interesting because I would love to learn a little more about ADHD because I don't know too much. But if you look at the actual like 11 signs of a bipolar episode, and you ask a group of entrepreneurs, like, do you identify with this? Most of them are going to say, yeah, I identify with at least 9 or 10 of these. It's like an abundance of energy. You're kind of scattered all the time.
Yeah.
You have these big picture ideas that to a point is almost delusional. And you kind of have to have a sense of delusion or narcissism to some degree to think that you're going to, despite everybody's failure, you're going to somehow succeed.
I would say the big difference between what I'm hearing you say about, and neither one of us are doctors, right? But based on my own experience of going through the diagnosis, the difference would be like ADHD tends to have this like different fluctuations of energy. So like you might hyper focus on something for like 4 to 6 hours, and then you'll have times where you cannot focus on anything at all. And there are those episodes of, depression, but it's more coming from like feeling bad about yourself for having a lack of like executive functioning skills. And so it would be interesting to kind of like look at the two and kind of compare and see how many people do feel like they have traits. Because something I learned about neurodivergency in general, 1 in 8 people are neurodivergent, but only 50% of them know it. Yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like, when you look online, first of all, having a diagnosis can be very scary and there's a lot of stigma still. So when you look online, it's usually how to deal with all these horrible things, but there's not a lot of articles about like how to utilize, let's say when you're in a manic energy or like you're having a lot of energy, how do I put that effectively to run my business? Because we always hear about people that have these spurts of energy and then do, things that are very negative. But like, how do you do that in a positive, successful way?
I think it sounds like a lunch and learn topic. I'm going to table that one. I want to hear more about it.
Cool.
So, what have been some of the biggest struggles or challenges that you've faced on your journey?
Yeah, I think I was just seeking experience. Like when I went to Austin, I was seeking experience in a way that I couldn't get here. Just trying to work for like a big company. My goal was to work at an advertising agency. And I think that's a good goal, at the time. But it's a little broad and it's like you're learning all these things that it can be really overwhelming, I would say. So I think it just takes a while to find your specific path. And like, I absolutely love remote work.
Yeah.
I love the idea of, working towards being like a digital nomad. Because I think that's the biggest perk of like being a freelancer, having a social media agency is you can be flexible. So
work wherever.
Yeah, but it's taken me a while. I think with the pandemic, it's become more popular. So it's like people aren't like, oh, you're a remote worker. Like, what does that mean?
Right. Everybody knows what remote work means now.
Yeah. So I think in a way, it's like it's kind of helped with maybe the certain events, but just finding, oh wow, there's people that they don't have to work at an advertising agency and they actually really like what they do.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So what makes you really unique in your approach to social media?
I feel like a lot of times for marketing, they don't do necessarily a lot of like market research and kind of question maybe their initial beliefs. And that's what I really like about the consumer behavior, social listening, I think is a really key role. And it depends, like, I mean, if you're a new company, there's maybe not as much to listen about, but like, what are people saying about your competitors? And I feel like a lot of times people just want to create content, but it's like before they even understand what is their comparative advantage, like there's so much noise out there. Like we know, like there's just too many ads. We can't read everything. So like, how are you going to stand apart? And I think really helping, solo entrepreneurs, small businesses find their why and like, why are you different is kind of a big, unique thing.
I like that. So you have a lot going on and having this remote lifestyle brings some of challenges with it in itself. So how would you say that you try to achieve like work-life self-care alignment?
I think just being realistic. I feel like there's some people that almost give me anxiety because they do way too much, honestly. Like everyone's different. And for me, I would say like I'm an extrovert, but I also need to charge my batteries like quite a lot. And with time, I think it's taken me realizing that because, I have health issues. Like I can't just be, YOLOing, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding. I think understand, like, when you've been in your career a little bit, your positives, your negatives, like what do you need a little more time on? So I think just taking the time to realize, okay, maybe, this is certain aspects of my life are suffering. Like, although I'm doing well with my professional, goals, maybe I need to kind of just slow down a little bit.
Right. Well, and recognizing that there's different phases of your life that you might be going harder on one than the other, but like going back to that center point to try to get that balance again.
I feel like we like are, we live amongst like Gary V's and like Tony Robbins.
Hustle. Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know about you, but like, I don't want to, celebrate the fact that I'm like working myself to death. Like, I feel like that's not a realistic goal. So just realizing like, okay, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And I mean, I still work a lot, but it's like, I take breaks,
right.
And
what do you want your life to look like as a whole?
Yeah.
Not just the work side of it. So you are a private office member at the Hive. So how do you feel that the Hive, you've kind of like bounced from different membership, right? Like you started as a community member, moved up to co-working and then private office. So how do you feel that the Hive has helped you personally and professionally?
I think something that has really resonated is, my last full-time job, it was in a situation where it was an advertising agency. So kind of typical like competitive traits. And so it was kind of funny to come in and it's like people are extremely supportive to a point that you almost have your guard up.
You're like suspicious.
You're a little suspicious. You're like, okay. And then I think when you find just such beneficial relationships, and it's like, I can't tell you how many ladies I've gone to lunch with, and I can't say that it necessarily is going to help me get a client, but I've just learned a lot.
Yeah.
I've met really interesting friendships that I think I probably wouldn't have met at the Hive. So it's just been a cool, like, it's forced me out of my comfort zone, especially during the pandemic, which has been great.
Yeah, I like that. Something I've been thinking about a lot with my business lately is that we really are more about those connections and relationships than like necessarily focused on helping you grow your business. Cause like that's such a personal journey.
Yeah.
But like what we can do is introduce you to cool women doing cool things that you can connect with and, maybe fill up that cup, where it's like, I just need entrepreneurship in general can be kind of lonely.
And I think with that you get connections and clients, but it's like more than anything, you're just having good conversations.
It's like a side effect. It's like an extra bonus sometimes if it happens. For sure. So what insight would you give to somebody at the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey?
I would say, especially right now, there's so many people that like different people on different paths that if you think that I think it's important to understand, like, what do you want? And search for people that are where you want to be in 5 years. And I think with that, you do more research, you see how they came to be, maybe their trials and errors, but like, just keep searching. For me, I try to find people in like the remote digital marketing space that, maybe are based in one city, but they travel a lot. And that's what I'm looking for, because that's kind of my goal.
Yeah.
So just being around other people, I think forcing yourself to be in networking situations when maybe, I'm not necessarily the most extroverted person, like I don't go up to strangers, but you just gotta kind of put yourself in uncomfortable situations sometimes
to grow.
Yeah, and you get used to it, and it's not so uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's such good advice.
I feel like it's hard. It's easier said than done, but like especially in college, I was like, oh my god, networking. It was like a scary thing, and then you're like, okay, it's not that bad.
Yeah, that's the worst that can happen. Yeah, you meet somebody new that maybe it's not the best fit, but you met somebody new.
Yeah,
learn something new. So how can we help you, or maybe connect to your ideal client, or just spread the word? What?
I mean, I think just continuing to have conversations. Like we were talking, like, I mean, I want to work with restaurants specifically. And there's something about restaurants that I love. I feel like if I was a little more living dangerously, I'd be like, I want to start a restaurant, but I know how much like challenge it is. So I love that. So just to be further connected, get ideas. I am wanting to work on, I'm putting kind of ideas together and trying to put a date, but I want to do a little like mini social media course for local restaurant owners. Because I think that'd be really cool and kind of collaborative because each one of them could help each other.
I like that. I think that'd be really cool. And there's like the Wichita Food and Booze group that would be a great way to like connect with people.
I love that group.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, well, I just asked you what, I was going to ask what do you have coming up, but it sounds like you have potentially this course. Anything else?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of tentative stuff. I'm doing recordings for the podcast, like starting next week.
Exciting.
Yeah. So that'll be really cool. I am not a super structured person in terms of how I listen to podcasts. So it'll be interesting to see how like I break it down.
Yeah.
But I'm wanting to just, if any business owner is out there and is like, hey, I would love to talk about my mental illness journey. If you have some chronic illness, like that's even better,
Yeah. Well, I'll happy to volunteer to be one of your first people.
Cool.
Have you been using the AV room for it?
I started.
Recording studio?
I like downloaded the software and I like started here. I have like the little mics.
Little lapel mic.
Yeah, but I really like these.
I can show you how to use this. We've got these fancy.
I really like
fancy ones.
Because they used to be more. I don't know. I don't like the bulky ones, but these are really cool.
I updated to these because if you pull that one over, we have multiple people recording podcasts, so it's nice to have each person have their own mic and not be leaning in to share the same.
These are really neat. So, like, I'm excited to use it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, anything else that you want to share while we're here on the live?
No, I don't think there's anything to.
Yeah. Well, if people want to reach out and get in touch with you, how's the best way?
Well, if you want to know what's maybe good to eat in Wichita, feel free to follow me on ICT Broke Girls, or you can go to AbediniSocial.com and learn a little more about my services.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.